It's a 1d6 piercing, and it has something called Vex. Okay? So, Vex...
Flex and Vex.
On the last episode, we were talking a lot about the UnEarthed Arcana around the classes that are coming in for D&D, for One D&D. And one of the things that we ended up talking about was the Ranger, and an ability that the Ranger has to do with weapon mastery, and that term came up. And you were a little bit confused by that. I was not privy to what that actually entailed. But as I look through the document way down toward the bottom, it says that each weapon now has a mastery property, as shown in the weapon table above. That property is usable only by a character who has a feature, such as weapon mastery, so like the Ranger, that unlocks the property for the character. Here are descriptions for each mastery property. The properties are provided in alphabetical order. If a game feature lets you replace a weapon's mastery property with another one, that weapon must meet any prerequisites specified for the new property. So to give you an example, give me one of the, regular weapons, like maybe one of the characters that you used, just one of the normal weapons that you might use in the game.
Sure. Considering we were talking about a Ranger, let's actually go with like a spear.
You're going to go with a spear. Okay, so
Yeah.
so what I'll do is I will find myself a spear. Yep, here we are. This is going to look very similar to what you saw in like a 5e. A spear, it's a 1d6 piercing weapon. Thrown has range 20-60, and it is considered versatile. 1d8.
Yeah, so it's 1d6 if you're using one-handed, two-handed is 1d8.
Exactly.
I was going to say
Versatile
1d8.
Yeah. So there's that. And, it costs 1 gold, and it weighs 3 pounds, but now it also has a mastery ability called Flex. Okay?
Oh.
So if you have the mastery property, and you have a spear, you can have Flex. Flex has just a prerequisite of being a versatile property, and what it does, when you hit with a melee attack using this weapon, you deal its versatile damage, even if you're wielding it with one hand.
Oh, I like that.
Now you would do essentially your 1d8, but as a one-handed weapon if you have mastery in it.
Is there a downside to this?
Nope. It's just that you have to have a character that has the mastery ability.
I was about to say, could I dual wield spears then? And the answer is yes. But then the answer is, well, no. Because generally, dual wielding, I believe you want to have a light weapon.
Sure.
A weapon that is classified as light.
Right. So, for instance, actually, while we're on that subject, I have, let's say you have, a light weapon. So, short sword is a finesse weapon. Yeah. It's a light weapon. It's a 1d6 piercing, and it has something called Vex. Okay? So, Vex...
Flex and Vex.
Flex and Vex. Vex can have prerequisites for ammunition, finesse, or a light property. And that is, if you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you have advantage on your next attack roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. Which seems like that's going to get pretty damaging very quickly.
So just advantage on your next turn?
Advantage on your next attack's roll against that creature before the end of your next turn. So yeah. So, if you... Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Won't that continually stack as long as I keep hitting? Yeah.
No. That's not exactly what I'm thinking. What I'm thinking is a rogue with weapon mastery and a short sword with Vex, for instance.
Sure.
Well, for a sneak attack, you really only need to have advantage on your target.
Right. Yeah.
So, it would be beneficial for me as a rogue, if I do not get weapon mastery from my own class, to dip into a class that gets weapon mastery, so I can sneak attack continuously.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That would also be very useful.
Because, oh, I'm a level 1, level 2 fighter. I don't know if fighters get. I assume they do. I assume that is a thing fighters would get. I go, I'm a fighter, but I'm also level 6 rogue. So suddenly I attack you this turn, and I've got advantage from flanking, or just from surprise, for instance, going from stealth.
Sure.
First attack, sneak attack. Oh, I hit. Cool, cool, cool. Next attack also has advantage. I'm getting sneak attack again.
Mm-hmm. A couple other ones, like my favorite is the Rapier, which is also a finesse weapon, and that also has Vex, so that's good. But then you have some other things that I think are neat, like for instance, tridents have topple, as battle axe also has topple. This is a neat one. It can be a heavy, a reach, or a versatile property is what you need for topple. If you hit a creature with this weapon, you can force the creature to make a Constitution saving throw with a DC equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus the ability modifier used to make the attack roll. On a failed save, the creature is in the prone condition.
I feel like that should be a dexterity save.
I guess.
Topple and prone makes it sound like they're falling.
Sure.
I'm not sure if toppling in a sense and being prone in a sense means they are on the floor, or if it means they can be standing up and prone. So I would like that to be elaborated on, perhaps.
Certainly.
But by topple, I'm thinking they are falling.
Sure. And then another one that I wanted to mention was for like ranged combatants. Some of them do have like the Vex ability, but then Longbow, always good, the Longbow, has a mastery called Slow. And that is a really neat one for crowd control, because if you hit a creature with this weapon and deal damage to the creature, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. If you hit the creature more than once with this property, the speed reduction doesn't exceed 10 feet. So, but, you know, if you consider that a lot of monsters probably move at, like 30 feet in a turn, that can significantly reduce a running monster who's coming at you.
Does it say how long that slow lasts?
Until the start of your next turn.
Okay.
So basically a round of combat is what it works in.
Which is significant.
Oh, certainly.
I mean, in that case, I would take the dash action.
Sure.
You slowed me 10 feet, but I'm going to double that anyways.
There are also, for like halberds and great axes, one called Cleave, which I think is neat. That can be either prerequisites or a melee weapon, heavy property. If you hit a creature with a melee attack using this weapon, you can make an attack roll with the weapon against a second creature within 5 feet of the first that is also within your reach. On a hit, the second creature takes the weapon's damage, but don't add your ability modifier to that damage unless that modifier is negative. You can make this extra attack only once per turn. So, you know, just wide swing. You do some damage to the other creature too. But yeah, no, they have a list of these, and I think that what I thought was really interesting is when I played 5e, there were a lot of times where I was like, realistically, what's the real difference between like this weapon and this weapon? Like scimitars and short swords are a good example of that. Same damage, they're both light weapons.
The difference between the two is just like what type of damage you're dealing at that end.
Exactly, slashing versus piercing. Yeah. Now what they do is let your scimitar gets Nick and your short sword gets Vex.
What's Nick do? Bleed?
Nick, actually, I can tell you what Nick is. This is interesting. When you make the extra attack of a light property, you can make it as part of the attack action instead of as a bonus action. You can still make this extra attack only once per turn. So, essentially, you can make your extra attack as a light property, and you can still do something with your bonus action. It doesn't take up that bonus action.
Yeah, so that would mean if it's in, like, the offhand.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because it's with the light property. You're making your extra attack.
Because it would be if you're I don't quote me. It's been a while. I believe if you have a weapon, if you're 2-weapon fighting, you have a weapon in your first hand and an offhand weapon. Then you can
and
attack
you can do the
bonus
one as a bonus action. Yeah, now it would just all be the
Yeah,
I'll be
this would be
bonus.
just the full rounded action attack is what that would have used to be, but this is just attack that it leaves your bonus action open.
Right, and it's probably worth noting that the most common weapon that every character pretty much has, the dagger, has Nick as your mastery. So,
Okay.
so if you wanted to do a dagger and your main weapon, this could be incredibly useful for you. But yeah, I think that it's useful because so many of these, like quarterstaff getting flex is great, because I could actually, use a shield and also my quarterstaff and still have the versatility of it.
Yeah.
A lot of these, I think it helps. I heard a few different people talking about how the weapons didn't really necessarily have a lot of personality because you're not getting a lot of special or magical items in the game. A lot of times you're just using the basic, simple weapons. And a lot of times people might not really understand what the purpose of any of them are. Like, why in the name of everything good and holy would I ever want to have a club that's doing 1d4 damage when...
Why would you want to have a club with mastery, though?
Yeah. Well, because it has slow. So you can slow
sense.
Characters down.
What's
and
a Morningstar have?
Oh, sure. Let me tell you what Morningstar has. 1d8 piercing, sap. I don't think I told you what sap is.
You did not.
If you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn.
So what you're saying is I need a rogue with a mace or a Morningstar with sap in one hand and a short sword in the other hand.
Yeah, you got because that's a light weapon, right? So you can
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does weapon mastery only give you one bonus, or does a weapon have multiple mastery perks?
The thing about it is, when it was talking about... Let me just see if I can... Okay, so the first level for Ranger was Weapon Mastery. Your training with weapons allows you to use the mastery property of 2 kinds of weapons of your choice, with which you have proficiency, such as longbows and long swords. So as long as you have proficiency with the weapon, that first level you get mastery properties of 2 kinds of those weapons. So you unlock the mastery of them.
So, like, longbows and short swords.
Longbows and short swords, right.
So each weapon only has 1 mastery, then?
I guess you can change them as long as they have the correct properties. Like each one of the masteries has a property that it has to have for it to be...
okay. So maybe I could get, like, light and, like... what's the mace have that you're looking at?
Morningstar had sap. Yeah, sap.
So I guess what I would like from this idea is just the clarification, like in the language on, like, weapon mastery is pick, like you would say pick sap, pick. What are the properties that Morningstar has?
Morningstar has no actual properties, and so sap is the prerequisite is that it has no other properties.
Okay.
So as long as it doesn't have any properties, you can choose sap.
Yeah, and then like. Short sword has just the 1 property?
Short sword has finesse and light, which lets it do vex because it can be finesse, light, or ammunition as a weapon.
And then what's light give it?
Light would let it be in the second... Well, okay, so here's like one example as I understand it. Nick has a prerequisite of the light property. So, theoretically, if you wanted to trade out, like if a game feature lets you replace a weapon's mastery property with another one, that weapon must meet any prerequisites specified for the new property. So, you have that short sword, it's light property, you could take Nick instead, and trade it out if you have the ability to do so, which would be the one where you can make the extra attack as part of your attack action.
Okay, so are you like if I'm getting a short sword and I have mastery, am I choosing when I get weapon mastery, am I choosing alright, I get short swords, I'm choosing Nick as the mastery? Is that how I would understand that?
My understanding as from how I'm reading this, by nature, the short sword has like Vex, but that it does have the prerequisites to take Nick if you change your mastery.
Well, I guess I'm wondering how you would change masteries and how you, like, earn them. Like,
Yeah.
is it the first one listed on it that it gets? Like, if it's finesse and then light, I would get the finesse. I guess I'm just kind of like, if weapons, like, a
Right.
spear, versatile, and thrown, I think, for instance, right?
Versatile Throne, yep.
Like, which of these properties do I get the mastery of? Do I choose when I get weapon mastery? Can I change them out whenever I want? Do I buy a weapon and it's got one or the other? I guess that's what I'm wondering.
Sure, yeah, I understand. I'm gonna guess that it's not one and then the next, because Scimitar and Short Sword are both listed as Finesse and then Light, and one has Nick, one has Vex. So,
Is it just like maybe standard that a scimitar will have Nick?
I think so. I think that it's just
And-
that these are the ones that they apply to the weaponry, but that doesn't exclude you from customizing how your mastery goes, assuming that the weapon has the correct property. Yeah.
I guess I would just like to see it fleshed out enough that it makes complete sense where it's not this weight.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because, like, can I just pay gold to swap the masteries, for instance? Can I spend, like, can I learn it at a level, or do I have to wait until I get the weapon mastery again and then swap it, which would sound like a waste. I would just like to learn new weapon masteries.
I just thought that was very interesting, that it is like a new customizable thing for the basic weaponry that helps kind of flesh out what they do and how they interact without specifically like changing their damage output or anything like that. So that they have like a little bit more personality to them, which helps, considering that your simple weapons are probably going to be, in many cases, what a lot of characters use throughout an entire campaign.
Yeah. And I do like that it would only apply to characters that have weapon mastery. So a sorcerer, for instance, probably is not really going to have that.
Right.
Which makes it good for the more martial classes that would benefit from it, that don't necessarily have a lot of unique or interesting abilities to call on like a spellcaster would.
Oh, sure. And like, that you have to also be proficient in them, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, so like a fighter who generally doesn't have spells unless they go down the path that would be an Eldritch Knight or something with spells. It's not like a fighter goes, yeah, I've got this cleave action, I've got this maiming rend, I've got, decapitate as an ability I can use.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, that's not what they have, so this would actually offer like a fighter that specializes in great swords, for instance, to be able to go. What are the properties of a great sword? I assume heavy and something.
Great sword. Okay, 2d6 slashing damage. It's a heavy two-handed, and it has graze as a mastery out of the gate.
Okay, what's graze?
Okay, graze, you would have to have prerequisite as a heavy property melee weapon. Both of those are prerequisites. But if your attack roll with this weapon misses a creature, you can deal damage to that creature equal to the ability modifier you use to make the attack roll. This damage is the same type dealt by the weapon, and the damage can't be increased in any way other than increasing the ability modifier.
So that's even if you miss.
With this, if your attack roll with this weapon misses a creature, you can deal damage for, equal to your ability modifier.
So if I were to make a fighter specializing in, say, like a greatsword, then I would go, cool, I've got graze, and that means I've suddenly become, even if I'm missing a creature, I'm dealing damage to it.
Yeah, I mean, just your ability modifier alone, you could be doing 5 damage or something, you know?
Yeah, and at level 1, that means even if you miss the character that you're trying to hit, you're still hitting them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that means like, oh, shoot, I missed you, but you're still dead.
Yeah. In low levels, that's going to be helpful. Yeah, I mean, even at like level 1, you might be getting like a 3 for your modifier. So, 3 damage, even if you're missing, is not bad at all. But but it also does make sense for something like a greatsword, which you would imagine would be hard to miss outright for damage. Yeah, I will tell you though, Alex, the longsword I think gets very useful here because it's a 1d8 slashing, but it's a versatile, so it gets 1d10, and it has flex. So if you have mastery in it, you can have a one-handed 1d10 weapon.
So you've got a bastard sword in your hand in one hand now.
Yeah, you're a barbarian. You're a barbarian. Good job.
Barbarian weapon master. Yes, please.
Perfect. So at any rate, I was wondering how everybody else feels about the idea of weapon mastery. It is this is like a whole new mechanic that's going into 1D&D, so I think it's worth talking about in a little bit more detail. Let us know in the comments down below or join us over on Discord if you'd like to check us out there.